Welcome to our channel. The good news for today is that as of May 29th, the debt ceiling has been raised up until the year 2025. In this video, we will go over why things look so grim and why the U.S. economy seems to be teetering on collapsing. In the event of a debt ceiling failure, the repercussions would be catastrophic. We would witness an economic meltdown with far-reaching consequences. Let me outline what could occur. To begin with, Social Security recipients would experience disruptions in their payments, and the same goes for military personnel receiving active service pay and pensions, along with all federal employees. Although this would cause considerable chaos, it would be the least of our concerns compared to the impact on the debt market, particularly the bond market. The devastation in the bond market would have severe consequences. Countries would quickly abandon the dollar at an alarming rate, leading to an unprecedented level of inflation. We are talking about hyperinflation on a scale similar to what we are witnessing at present. However, the effects of such a scenario would surpass our current situation by far. Essentially, it would result in a complete financial meltdown. I wish I could say this is an exaggeration or an attempt to sensationalize the situation, but sadly, it's the truth. Anyone knowledgeable about the financial system would confirm the gravity of these consequences. I am not embellishing or sensationalizing the situation. I am merely stating the facts. In fact, I might even be downplaying the severity. To paint a more accurate picture, I should probably include royalty-free images depicting properties engulfed in flames. That would better capture the magnitude of the situation, to be honest. Moving on, I'd like to provide you with an update regarding the current situation. It appears that stock market investors have begun to take this matter seriously and are taking steps to protect themselves by engaging in hedging. The sudden surge in hedging is in response to the looming possibility of a debt ceiling failure. Consequently, the cost of obtaining this protection is skyrocketing. It's evident that people are starting to recognize the gravity of the situation. Now let's quickly go over the fundamentals. The debt ceiling can be understood as the maximum borrowing limit for our federal government, akin to a credit card limit. When the government spends more than it collects, it resorts to borrowing to cover the deficit caused by its spending habits. However, if the government becomes unable to borrow any more money, it will be unable to meet its financial obligations and will default on its debts. Currently, the debt limit stands at $31.4 trillion, and we have reached that threshold. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has explicitly warned that if Congress fails to raise the debt limit, the federal government will exhaust its fund to pay bills as early as June 1st. However, in my personal view, Janet Yellen seems to be exaggerating and creating a sense of distress. Based on my estimation, we likely have until July and possibly even August before the government exhausts its funds. Therefore, this issue remains significant, considering that politicians won't be diligently addressing it every day until July to find a viable solution. The reason for this is their adherence to a sacred tradition. They must protect their vacations. It's an essential part of their routine, and they have a use it or lose it policy for their paid time off. Unlike you, who might consider sacrificing your time off to save the country, our politicians will not make that sacrifice. I'm just being honest. It's their policy, and it's called PTO. Now, let's focus on the current situation regarding the Republican position. What do the Republicans want, and what are they saying? The Republicans are expressing their concerns about the alarming increase in our national debt over the past few years. Consequently, they are willing to raise the debt limit on the condition that federal spending is significantly reduced across multiple areas. You might be wondering about the areas in which expenses can be cut to address the issue. In short, practically all the areas that hold significance to Democrats are affected, ranging from climate change to IRS funding. This clearly poses a problem. Now let's delve into the Democrat stance and what they're advocating for. The Democrats are pushing for an unconditional increase in the debt ceiling, allowing more spending without any restrictions attached. This is a major concern because it highlights the divergence between Democrats and Republicans. On the other hand, Republicans are calling for measures such as eliminating climate change initiatives, canceling student loan forgiveness, reclaiming the $80 billion from the IRS, and implementing work requirements for assistance programs. This divergence is causing considerable anxiety among Democrats. It would be intriguing to initiate a conversation like this with a Democrat and observe their reaction. Feel free to share how it goes. Considering this situation, Investors are closely monitoring the situation and expressing apprehension. Historically, politicians have always raised the debt ceiling because they had no other choice. This is the conventional argument. However, this time, investors are observing both Republicans and Democrats closely and fearing potential trouble. This signifies the gravity of the situation. Negotiations between Republicans and Biden's congressional leaders commenced this month. With Republicans in control of the House and Democrats controlling the Senate, key figures from both sides came together to work on a deal. Unfortunately, the meeting was unproductive as it primarily involved playing the blame game, wasting precious time. Republican leader and Speaker of the House McCarthy expressed his dissatisfaction, stating that he currently sees little difference. The only noteworthy progress was the fact that they met for the first time in 97 days. That marks a beginning, a point of initiation. Starting somewhere is essential, isn't it? Thus, McCarthy took the opportunity to address the press following their Tuesday meeting. As I had previously mentioned in a video, he reiterated his statement, claiming that the House Republicans are the sole ones in Washington who have successfully passed the debt limit increase, unlike Democrats. While this claim holds true on paper, it is accompanied by significant spending cuts that the Democrats simply cannot endorse. The Republican House Majority Whip explicitly stated, perhaps the Biden administration should introspect and recognize that they are the only ones posing a threat of default, endangering these programs. Biden has the perfect solution from House Republicans before him, the only bill that eliminates the risk of default and safeguards Social Security. However, he seems more inclined towards bankrupting our nation than engaging in negotiations. Now let me elaborate on the concerns raised by the Majority Whip regarding defaults and the protection of Social Security, among other things. If the Republicans and Democrats fail to reach an agreement on raising the debt ceiling, it would lead to a shortage of funds for the federal government, resulting in numerous disruptions. One of the affected areas would be Social Security. Consequently, if the government runs out of money, Social Security recipients may experience delays, reductions, or even missed payments. This situation poses a significant problem since many individuals in our country rely on these payments to meet their daily needs. Retirees and Social Security recipients, much like others living paycheck to paycheck, would face disastrous consequences if their payments were delayed, reduced, or missed. Imagine the nightmare scenario where your employer informs you that they won't be able to pay you for an entire month, or perhaps even 2 months. Apologetically, they assure you that they will eventually get your money to you. If such a situation unfolded, it's understandable that most people would be thrown into a state of panic. The resulting disruption would be nothing short of chaotic, especially considering the 66 million Americans who rely on Social Security benefits. Now here's the unsettling part. Even though the government runs out of funds, one would assume that Social Security recipients and individuals like myself who pay Social Security taxes would still receive their payments. It seems like a logical expectation, doesn't it? However, let me explain why this is not the case. When we pay Social Security taxes, or more precisely, when the government deducts them from our paychecks, the funds are deposited into the general fund, essentially a large checking account where all the money gets mixed together. The federal government settles their expenses by paying their bills in the order they receive the invoices, resembling a large checking account. This means they cannot prioritize payments, resulting in a chronological approach. Consequently, Social Security recipients' payments that you would assume to hold higher priority than Senator Schumer's favored projects in New York is not a reality. The payment infrastructure is outdated and inadequate, lacking cutting-edge, customizable, cloud-based solutions. The director of the Congressional Budget Office mentioned the theoretical possibility of prioritizing certain expenses, but it remains untested and presents technological challenges. If you rely on Social Security, these words might not provide much reassurance in such a situation. Furthermore, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen stated that prioritizing payments is not part of the plan, implying they are not even considering a backup solution. Although the Treasury Department mentioned the potential use of funds from the Social Security Trust to prevent payment interruptions, several officials expressed skepticism. Overall, these statements do not instill a sense of confidence. Essentially, we would be activating our own self-destruct button, while other countries like China and Russia simply observe our implosion. Now, if the debt ceiling remains unraised, the U.S. government will be unable to meet its debt obligations on time, ultimately resulting in a default. Consequently, the credibility of the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency would rapidly erode. Goldman Sachs has warned that the political deadlock surrounding the U.S. debt ceiling poses a tangible risk to the future of the U.S. dollar. In the event of de-dollarization, brace yourself for an unprecedented surge in inflation that would make the 70s appear as a period of mild price increases. Comparatively, what Jay Powell and his colleagues did in 2020 with the Federal Reserve would seem like responsible monetary policy. The detrimental impact on financial markets would be devastating, surpassing the recent consequences we witnessed. This is not an exaggeration, but a grim reality. The stock market would suffer extensive damage, causing significant concern among investors who are now actively seeking higher price safeguards in case of a crash. This phenomenon is commonly referred to as doomsday hedging. The gravity of the risk has prompted J.P. Morgan Chase to establish a war room, essentially a think tank, to assess the situation and explore potential contingencies. While Janet Yellen may lack a backup plan, it is certain that Jamie Dimon has one in place. So the big question is, will the federal government actually run out of money? According to Deutsche Bank, they predict it will be in late July, while Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs believe it will be sometime between June and July. Barclays also agrees with July. So if we take the average, we can say it'll likely be around July, give or take a few weeks. Now let's look at the most probable scenario. There will be some spending cuts, although not everything that Republicans want. However, they will raise the debt ceiling enough to keep the government going for a few months. It'll be a temporary solution, essentially delaying the real issue for a while. Initially, the plan was to increase the debt ceiling and sustain the government for an entire year. However, it seems they are now working on a deal to only get through a few months until the end of summer. The Republicans and Democrats were supposed to meet again, but they unexpectedly called it off, stating that there wasn't enough to discuss since their last meeting resulted in no progress. Rest assured, I'll stay informed about the situation and provide updates. If you haven't already, please subscribe for more information. Thank you for watching.